Hello and welcome to the Life of Styn. Today we're going to be talking about justification and how the mind uses this principle to make excuses for its actions, and also why we need to take a step back and kind of observe the mind when it is justifying what it does or doesn't do. There's plenty of times in our lives when we justify our actions for whatever reason. Like, oh, I only did that because so and so did that. Or if they didn't do that, I wouldn't have done what I did, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, I could make some more in depth examples, but I mean, you kind of get, the basic enough. You can start to see how we justify ourselves as a defense mechanism to either paint ourselves as the good guy, or sometimes we even want to paint ourselves as the bad guy. Either way, you can kind of see the mind and the ego uses many deceptive techniques to get what it wants. Usually, that's obviously conditional happiness, like pleasures, comfort, status, fame, all the things the ego tends to strive for. But obviously, this could be super destructive to oneself and the others around them. For example, I mean, Hitler was justified for what he did in World War II. He made excuses and reasons for why what he did was good. And if you've ever done any sort of actual research on the matter, like Hitler thought he was doing the right thing. Like he thought he was a noble person. He even fooled himself in thinking that what he was doing was the best. And he fooled many people as well, obviously. And he devoted himself to what he thought was a noble cause, but was actually one of the greatest evils talked about today. So now you might say something like, well, obviously I'm not Hitler. I would never be that ignorant and deceived, especially by myself. But, don't be so sure about that. Now, you're justifying why you aren't like that. It's pretty sly, if you ask me. A lot of people nowadays are telling themselves the same thing. Some people are doing amazing things and then calling themselves evil. And there are also people doing evil things and justifying it as good. So when you find yourself justifying your thoughts or actions or justifying your next course of action, really step back and see why you're doing it. Is it something you actually want to do out of the goodness of your heart? Or are you just making excuses to do what you want and then lying to yourself about doing it for selfless reasons? Do whatever you want, honestly. Make the choices you want to make. Just note that those choices have consequences, whether you're justified or not justified. But don't fucking lie to yourself and others to get what you want and then still pretend like you're a good person because you were in the right. Or play victim to affirm why you did what you did. You can see the ego tries to defend its self image while also getting what it desires. Now, if you want to live in this kind of immature way, that's fine. I'm not here to judge anyone or put anyone higher or lower than anyone else or to even tell you what to do. I get it. I know all about doing whatever it takes to survive. And survival is way more than just food and water. It's also social status, your image, the identity you adopt. Like the ego grasps onto all the identities and then we feel like it has to defend it or it will quote unquote die. Or at least it'll feel like it is. And again, the ego is just the sense of self and your self agenda. Like, all I'm doing is bringing to the surface how deep self deception can run. And sometimes, even when we are actually just deceiving ourselves, we need to be honest with ourselves. So honest that it hurts. Because if we're just lying to ourselves, then we are most definitely lying to the people around us. And then we aren't living true to ourselves and we will suffer for it. We will be like a small animal who willingly trapped themselves in a dark corner, all alone and suffering, and then will play the woe is me, the victim card, while literally being the same exact reason why we're suffering. And then we're going to justify it. And we're. Can you see how nasty of a cycle that is? Like, you won't get what you want out of life by living this way. So just be aware of the thoughts and feelings that arise before you make any actions. I mean, that's just common sense, very very practical. Make the decisions you want to make. Do whatever you feel like you got to do, but ask yourself why. Why do you want to make this decision? What's your end goal with this decision? uh, do you actually feel right about it, or are you making excuses? Are you masking the desire to make certain decisions with righteousness? I just want to help you make more authentic decisions. Do things because you actually want to, out of fulfillment, not because you feel like you lack something or that you'll gain some arbitrary materials or a sense of worth and being enough. Like, where's your stance when making those decisions? And can you generate some foresight into the end result of your actions? Ponder all of this, and of course, watch when you justify yourself. For example, I don't care why you did or didn't do something, but don't justify it and mask it with goodness. And another thing, don't let the ego justify itself by just saying, "Oh, well, I'm just a piece of shit. I'm a terrible person." Don't justify your evil because you're not a good person. That's just as bad as taking the easy way out. And in that way, you can kind of see how the ego is playing that Uno reverse card on itself to once again justify itself, its behaviors, its emotions, its feeling, all of those things. Now, why does any of this matter? It's simple. It isn't reality that's preventing us from being happy and manifesting the reality we want and living our dreams. It's not. I don't care how much it really seems like that, it's not. And eventually you can discover that for yourself if you truly feel like reality is preventing you from living the life you want. No, it's your mind. You want to change your life? Then you need to change your mind. You can only have the experience of reality you currently possess with your current mindset. Now, if we want to change your mindset into a productive, healthy one free from suffering, then life will reflect the changes you make in yourself. A rotten mind is only going to see the world as rotten. A pure mind will see all things as pure. Okay, have faith in that. Obviously, don't blindly believe, like I always say, but do have faith that what you're doing will actually work out in the end towards what you actually need. That all of this work you're putting in, especially if it's self development and awareness and everything I talk about, if you're putting the work in, then you will make it. If you actually devote yourself to this stuff instead of just half assedly pretend like you're actually doing the practices or actually trying and then masking it by not actually doing any of those things. By saying you do, but if you only meditate for 5 minutes once and you're like, "Oh, well, I tried," you're excusing yourself, you're justifying yourself, and then you're playing that victim, and boom, you're back into that nasty cycle. Many times what we want isn't what we need, okay? But when we get what we need and not what we want, it usually gives us an environment to pursue what we want. Now, as always, I can talk about this forever. I love talking about the psyche and reality, the way our minds work, the way reality works. But I think I've got most of my points across. Like and comment, subscribe, explore the links that I have down. Reach out to me through the comments or my email or Facebook, whatever it is. Tell me what topics you want because there's so many topics that I want to do, but I can only do them one at a time, obviously. If you want one-on-one counseling, I do provide that right now as well. All you gotta do is reach out, and I do those on Sunday. Anyways, thank you, and have the day you were meant to have.